Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hey y'all, welcome to another edition of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Scott Carpenter. Now, Scott didn't follow the traditional fitness professional path. He actually started in the corporate world, got burned out, but had a passion for fitness. So he moved south and started working for one of the big box gyms. He spent about 3 or 4 years there, of learning the industry, paying his dues, and then he was ready for his next thing, which he purchased a gym and wanted to turn it around. Now, one gym turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4, turned into a handful of gyms that he was operating. And anyone that's had multiple businesses or multiple locations knows that the problems just multiply and magnify when you have multiple locations. Now, one unique thing about Scott is how he handles these issues. He has a unique ability to always find the good in everything bad that is happening. We get into all of those stories in this episode of a 2-part series with Scott Carpenter. Scott Carpenter, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you on. We've had a lot of kind of off-camera conversations, so it's going to be excited to have one on camera.
Absolutely. It's been cool getting to know you over the past several months, I think.
Yeah.
And been really fun. You do some amazing stuff.
Thank you. Well, today is all about you, so let's get into it. A lot of people would know you today with the PT Legends and what you're doing to help gym owners. But like a lot of people who have kind of created another business within this realm, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for previous experiences. And so I really want to start by just kind of unpacking that stuff. And let's go way back. Like, what even got you into the industry to start with? Was it right out of school? Were you in sports, or was it kind of a later career change for you? How did it start for you?
It was later. I was raised by parents who knew one way, and that is by getting perfect grades at school, getting into a good school, getting into a normal, safe, secure job with a big company, and then just waiting to die. And that was the only path that was laid out for me, and so I got into the corporate world and I hated it, just miserable. So, and I'm a very entrepreneurial kind of guy. I always kind of have been, right? And so I didn't really want to do that. I started getting into into fitness, getting really into health and fitness at this point. So this is post-college. And that was probably the only thing that saved me from massive depression at that time. And then I just realized I see where my life is going if I keep on this path, and I don't want to go that route. So I decided, and I hated where I was living in Illinois, kind of where I grew up. So I moved out to Scottsdale, where there's palm trees and sun and pools and beautiful women. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'm like, let me do something I actually like and am passionate about. So I got certified as a personal trainer, and I started with a big box gym, Lifetime Fitness, out here.
So did you just move out just kind of on a whim, on like, hey, complete career change, I'm going to change my location, I'm going to change my space, I'm going to do a new thing, without any plans, without anything? Or was there a little bit of a...
Nothing.
Okay. All right.
I visited out here in January, where there's a Barrett Jackson auto show going on. And so it's like January, and there's palm trees, there's all this stuff. And then I'm like, that's it, I'm moving. So I was out there within months. I put in my 2 weeks. My working for a big corporation, right? So my boss is like, well, we can transfer you. I'm like, nope. I hated my job. I just hated it.
Right.
So I didn't have a job. I didn't have interviews. I just packed up my crappy little car that I bought for $3,900, threw the dogs in there, threw my earthly possessions, and drove on out.
No apartment, no anything. Did you have a friend out there that you could crash on?
I had one friend there who was going to be moving back. So I stayed with her for a period of 3-4 weeks, maybe, until I could find an apartment of my own. And then what I was doing, because that's when I was realizing, hey, why don't I just do something that I enjoy?
Right.
And figure things out. Because I was looking at these job postings back then it was like Monster. I'm like, that looks boring. That looks boring. So I got certified through NASM really quickly. I interviewed before I was certified, and I got the job, but I couldn't start until I got certified. So I had to cram. And then, by that year and whatever that was, 2008, then I started working for Lifetime.
Cool. So how long were you at Lifetime?
I was there for maybe about a year, and my business skills helped. My business acumen helped. So I was there for about a year, and I got promoted to be an assistant manager. Okay. And then year or year and a half, somewhere around that line, I got promoted to take the first open position to be the department head at a different location in the Valley in Arizona. Okay. Yeah. So I managed like a staff of 20 to 30 trainers. And I did that for a total of 4 years. But like I can't sell stuff I don't believe in. I'm really, really bad at that. And like, they wanted you to push all these ancillaries. They wanted to sell this and sell that. And you're just making extra money. And I have no problem if that's going to help them. And it would marginally, but that's not where they should be really focusing their time, money, energy, and effort to get the results. And then they just kept getting more and more corporate about it, shoving it down your throats, even though you could be crushing the numbers. Well, this one isn't there. Well, these people are getting better results. Like, who cares, right? So I had a big conflict with that. And then also how they treated staff members. It's not about customers achieving the end result. And this is why I got into it. Like, fitness was a huge improvement on life to me. Huge. And then I wanted to help others do the same thing. But all the emphasis was just on the BS, and numbers are absolutely important. Money is absolutely important. And actually they go hand in hand when you learn how to do it the right way. The more you charge, the better results they're going to get. So that is for sure when you learn that. But they had no concern about making trainers better, becoming better coaches. And nutrition was like non-existent, which is 90% of it, right? All that stuff. And then so I'm just like, I got to get out of this thing. I got to get out of it.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that.
Is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
The drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
So you're 4 years deep. You've been in it for a while. Probably pretty comfortable with like the situation, the scenario, everything that's going on. You kind of know what to do day to day. And so was there a moment where I was like, no, I'm out, like I'm done with it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if I look back, and it was a bad thing that happened, but if I look back in my life and every single thing that was like horrible that I incurred or happened to me, whatever, given enough time, it ended up being the absolute best thing that happened to me. And that includes when, I had an employee, get into sexual stuff and literally melt down one of my studios. And like in the long run, COVID forced some amazing changes and forever changed my life. It's these bad things that can happen if you just keep moving forward and keep progressing can be the best things. So yeah, what happened was at that time, a new GM came in and she was off her rockers. I knew she didn't take the normal promotion path that is pretty rigid to move up and you had to be vetted by a lot. I'm like, and I was right later on. She took an alternate path. Somebody at corporate took a favor to her for whatever reason. Right. She was installed and she was a nut. So we butt heads And then this is horrible. And another thing that they did, they made you walk around with a walkie-talkie plugged into your ear every minute of every day there. To me, just to engage with somebody who might sign up, who might be interested in personal training, so you can go and say hi. Now, I don't know but what's buzzing in your ear are membership appointments, spa crap, facility management, cleanups and stuff like that. So this thing is going off, and you're supposed to train clients or manage a staff meeting or have a consultation or do an interview on somebody. That is literally a violation of your own mind. You know what I mean? And those two things, I'm like, I am out.
So you couldn't take it off while you were in an interview with someone or while you were training a client, or you weren't?
Well, this is because of the GM. This was a pilot thing. Okay. But she's so crazy that she barged into my staff meeting because nobody was answering for Pete on behalf of the PT department. And we're all in their staff meeting. So yes, you were supposed to do, and I just said, I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm not doing it. I can't even think in my own head. Are you crazy? There's just no chance. And meanwhile, okay, I was smashing department revenues all time since the club opened, by far. By far. And this was the most challenging because this one was not in Scottsdale. This one was in Goodyear. It was the most challenging location that Lifetime had out of about 100 locations. So I'm crushing it. And the P&L from my department is actually is overperforming so much where it was saving the rest of the gym. So all you got to do is just say, hey, thank you. What can I do to make your job easier? That's it, But this led, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. And because it's horrible. But again, the bad things can be the catalyst for you to grow and change and become what you need to become. So I found a listing for a box that was going out of business, a box gym. It was group training only with literally punch cards. Okay. 10 visits for $100 or something. And when I say literally punch cards, I mean literally like business card punch cards that you use, one of those staple things with a star shape.
Right. Yeah.
That was what it is. Guess where the client roster and sheets and lists were written on these cards? And maybe there was a phone number, maybe there's an email, maybe not. So I went, I took big pay cuts. It was corporate America. Right. Boom. I go to building a business, personal training, which takes a while and all that. I worked my butt off to get to this couple management positions up where I'm probably making 90s, maybe close to 100K. And then that was so bad with everything that I'm like, I'm getting out. So I bought the gym and literally inherited $800 a month in business. $800 a month in business. It's basically a box going out of business, losing, a few $1,000s a month and with equipment. So that's what I had to work with when I moved in an area that I wasn't familiar with, but I'm just like, I got to get out. I'm going.
How did you find it? How'd you come about the box?
I think it was bizbuysell.com.
Okay.
Why I was perusing that, I don't know. I was looking for any ticket out of Lifetime Fitness to start making money on my own.
Yeah.
And I saw that as an opportunity.
Were you trying to stay in fitness, or were you kind of like any sort of business endeavor?
Yep. Originally, what I was thinking of doing was creating an educational program to teach high school kids how to take care of their bodies. Because, you don't learn two things. You don't learn really how to succeed financially, in all these years of school, and you don't really learn how to take care of your body and your health. I'm very passionate about those two things, because those two things can give you so much freedom and happiness. And so what I wanted to create a curriculum to teach kids how to do this, because it's just absent in our schools. Nobody knows what to do, right? And so that's what I was going to do, but I didn't know how to start that up. But what I saw was this business that was there. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can go there and make some money to figure that out, because I can't do it at Lifetime. That job was 60 hours a week and super stressful. And so I'm like, I can maybe make some money and pay the bills while I work on that.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So you get the box. You obviously went through with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of opportunity. Like if you see a business like that, then that's how it's being run. Was that how you kind of viewed this? Was like, hey, like there's opportunity here. There's potential here. The way they're running it is complete garbage. Yep. Like I can come in, turn this thing around and start, making some money quick.
That's exactly what it is. Cause there's just group there, right? Group. And there was a couple personal trainers paying rent, basically taking walk-ins. It was just the most bizarre experience. I had to call the cops on the guy my first freaking week of ownership and lock him inside because there's a double key on both sides. Because I kicked him out. I told him, you can't come back here. He says he's coming back here. I'm like, listen, I'll call you a ride from the police if you come back. I got tipped off he was coming in. He barges in. I lock him in. I'm like, take a seat. I'm going to call you a ride. Very uncomfortable for the clients in the building at that time. I've had the worst stories, I swear. But so I knew I could bring, so my advantage, as opposed to a lot of people who have just been in the group space, right? The large group volume space, is I knew how to sell PT. And so, there was some group stuff. And then I brought in personal training and I was good at selling it. So I was able to increase that revenue and profitability pretty quickly over the next several months.
So were you doing a lot of the training or did you bring any of the like coaches or trainers with you to handle day-to-day?
I brought one guy I knew from Lifetime Fitness with me. Mm-hmm. So it was him and I, and it wasn't in an ownership situation, but it was where all his clients, I let him kind of do it for free and he helped me grow it. And we did different pay things. We discussed him buying in. Never did happen. Thank God. Because this is the guy, that's a story for another day, but that's the guy who, when I was at another location that I bought and rebranded, he ended up sleeping with the female trainer at this location because he was in charge of running this location, sleeping with the female trainer. The lead trainer was her like really good friend. He messed with her head. He did all these different things. He denied it. Okay. And I got a call on a random Sunday. I'm like, from somebody that was working there. He's like, I got to talk to you. Things are about to get crazy. I'm like, and that's when I started learning all this, but I didn't know the truth because I sat down with Jake like the very next day or that same day. I cannot remember. Lied to my face about it. So I had to like interrogate everybody or interview everybody, I should say, figure out what is going on. And then I felt bad for this guy because I'd known him for a few years. And what I didn't know is that he's a different person than everybody. Everybody has a different, and he's very likable. But man, I found all the stuff I found out after was unbelievable because here's what I did. Here's something incredibly stupid that I did. I thought fundamentally this is a good person who made a bad decision because he was going through some very difficult things in his life, which he was. His fiance backed out a week before the wedding and his dad died like a month or two after that. Okay. So I'm like, yes. So instead of letting him go, I was working at the Desert Ridge location. Okay. Sort of like part-time-ish running that one. And instead of letting him go, I let him come over to that location and I had to raise the 7th Street location imploded because, well, the girl, right? I had to work alongside her and I'm just like, when is she going to sue me? It was horrible. She had a horrible attitude, not her fault. And then the one guy left to start with all the clients to start a gym down the street. Everybody's had that story. And then I had to let another guy go because his attitude just couldn't turn around because he thought I was covering up for him when I didn't know anything. It's just crazy kind of stuff. So that club melted down and I let this other guy go to the one that I was working out where he proceeds to do the very exact same thing. He hooks up with the female personal trainer. My GM there flips out because I was honest with him about why this guy was coming over. He does this. And then he thinks I'm covering up for Jake. So this GM flies off the handle and leaves. Okay. The female trainer denies this, that anything's going on until months later. He lets go of another guy. She's gone then after they come clean about it. And now I've got to fire him with one extremely part-time staff member over there. And this location just bleeding in the red still. This was by far the hardest time in my career that I've ever had. I had 2 locations, bleeding like crazy. And I had my newborn son. Well, he was like maybe 6 to 12 months when this stuff was starting to go on. And it was horrible because I was doing 4 a.m.s. I was finishing at 8 p.m.s. I was working Saturdays. I was working Sundays with no hope in sight. So that was about 5 years in. Sorry if I skipped over a few things, but that was a really intense period of my life.
Well, let's fill in the gaps a little bit. So you had the first facility. How long before you did the next one? Was the next one like another purchase like this one, or did you start kind of in a brand new one in a new location?
It was a new location. So this is obviously, if anybody's listening, you can tell that I'm a little bit dense with certain things. When I was younger, I look back, I'm like, man, I was dumb. Like, what was I even thinking? But, if you're too stubborn to fail, if you're too stubborn to lose, you're not going to. You're going to find a way. So it was just literally grit that got me by from being a complete moron in my younger years. So yeah, I had that location for like 8 months or so. Brought it up decent. I'm still not taking home tons, but it's good. I'm like, oh my God. And you think, oh, it'll just keep growing like this and all that kind of stuff. But why am I looking to expand at this point? I don't know, because I'm stupid. So I was on Craigslist and I found a bunch of equipment for sale, right? And equipment you can buy for pennies on the dollar, you know what I mean? Right. So I call. I have no money to buy it. I've got no place to put it. I don't know why I made the call, but I made the call. And part of me is like, you just act as if though, like you can't wait till all the planets align. They never will. So you just have to take action. And sometimes things fall into place when you just keep doing that. So I called. He's like, well, that equipment is spoken for. I'm selling it for a friend, but are you looking to get your own studio or gym? Because I'm going to sell one of mine. He had 2 locations. So I'm like, yeah, even though I had no money. So that was my Glendale location. And that's where I met my future partner. He was an independent contractor paying rent, or independent trainer paying rent. Yeah. But really cool because so he was selling that. It was a second location. He was going to have a baby, him and his wife, and it wasn't profitable. And so he bit off more than he could chew. Right. So I got somehow I qualified for a microloan from like a nonprofit. I got like a client to pay in full. And then somehow the landlords let me have the lease. Bizarre. I mean, this is probably like this is not too far after that big recession. Right. Okay. Yeah. So still like real estate was down. I hadn't fully recovered. So I guess they just let me in without qualifying me. So I got that second location and I rebranded it. So that was location number 2. I'd say that was less than a year after I opened up location number 1. Okay.
And was it similar style, kind of the group training and PT?
Yep. So we had group training, we had PT, and then what I ended up doing, I brought in semi-private. Okay. I brought in semi-private, and at that time I was charging like 30. So here's my group, guys. It was like 99 to 149. That's what I was doing. Unless somebody had deals, maybe they're paying $79. Right. So my number one thing is price. Price makes everything. Bring more value, charge drastically higher prices. You get total freedom as a gym owner. That was not me at this stage. So I had large group, I had private, I had semi. I eventually got rid of large group or toned it down, not completely, but I toned it way down because I found that people were definitely willing to pay more for better service. And instead of just getting rid of it, what I did, I just took it off the menu because my places aren't that big. Right now they go anywhere from 1,300 to 2,500 square feet. And the volume model, I hate it. It's a lot of headache. It's a lot of clients. It's a lot of problems. It's a lot of everything. I want to work with fewer clients and make way more money. So that's what I started to do at this stage. I wasn't doing it well, but I eventually kind of phased out group and I ran with PT and semi-private. I think I was able to do that a lot easier than most because I had my background in PT. I knew what things could be. So that was just normal to me to sell, personal training. So that was a big advantage to me, unlike a lot of box gym owners who that's really all they know.
So when you say PT, was that the 1-to-1 model or was it kind of the 1-to-3 or 1-to-4 model?
At the time, that was 1-to-1. So
Okay.
I ran with, my one-on-one PT model and semi-private for the longest time, which certainly has its drawbacks. I eventually started doing pretty well, decently well, right? And I'm very comfortable, but it has its drawbacks. That model has some very strong positive, but some very strong negatives as well.
And so, I mean, what would you say if someone was kind of debating the model that they want to choose, what would you say some of the positives and negatives of it would be for you?
The cool thing, so you can do really well with group when you learn how to really charge a good price. And the secret is no matter what model that you use, whether it's group, it's large group, small group, semi, one-on-one, or the new one that we created, overlapping one-on-one, which is phenomenal. That is the best. You can still have group and overlapping, but there's really not much of a need to have one-on-one if you know how to do overlapping one-on-one. You are severely handicapping yourself forever and making sure that your staff members, your employees are going to be underpaid. So overlapping is phenomenal. That being said, no matter what your business model, the key is that you need to have an additional offer for people who need more than workouts to get to their goal, which is almost everybody coming in. So I read this amazing article on the decline of CrossFit and this, that, and the other in the United States. And that's true. Like, people are not as interested in that. Group models and group things can be very up and down. Boot camps were the thing before that, right? Then it's like, ooh, CrossFit, and it explodes and then it wanes. So group stuff is usually kind of themed and it has its vulnerabilities, but any of them can still work. But the thing that people have to realize is most people coming in, whether you got a CrossFit, a boot camp, they're not coming in to work out. They're not coming in to do CrossFit workouts. They're not coming in to do boot camp. They're not coming in to do HIIT. Okay. Some of them are 5-10% maybe. Okay. They just want to come in with that type of workout. They're coming in for that. They just want to move, sweat, and join a community. Cool. But 90+% of the other people that come into any given gym, they don't care. They don't even want to work out. In their heads, they're just thinking, okay, I feel really crappy about myself, right? I'm definitely like not looking good in my clothes. My weight's up, I blah, blah, blah. My clothes aren't fitting right. I'm just kind of feeling tired. I'm out of shape. Therefore, I need to get in shape and lose weight. Therefore, I need to work out. That's the thought process. They equate it all to working out. I need to start working out. So then what do? It's at the right time and they scroll and they see your Facebook ad, or they do a Google search and find you. You're pretty close and, blah, blah, blah. And then they come in, and then what do? We figure out what their goals are. And then we tell them how awesome we are, and how much better we are than everybody else. And then we just give them workouts. Maybe some people do nutrition coaching, but if we're perfectly honest, hardly anybody's able to really sell nutrition coaching. And when they are, they're hardly able to get them to get results. It's like pulling teeth, and the retention isn't there, and the low prices are there, and the scalability, it's a lot of work for a little bit of payoff. Rinse and repeat. But the problem is that they're not coming in to work out. So we need to figure out what they're coming in for, and we need to dive into that, and we need to get them to reveal to us why it's so important for them to make this change now. How has it been holding them back from being the best version of themselves? Has it affected their self-confidence? Has it affected their social confidence? Has it affected their energy? I mean, they wake up and they don't have any structure, and they're just trying to get through the day with work and travel and kid stuff and groceries and meal prep. And they're exhausted at the end of the day. They're scrolling through Instagram or watching that extra Netflix episode and staying up late. And it's just, they wake up and it's like whack-a-mole, and they don't have any structure into their lives. So when we can show them that, and it's not about the workouts, it isn't about the workouts. The workouts are necessary, but they're so overrated. I don't care if you're like conjugate X method versus CrossFit versus we're more traditional strength training versus we're more this. It's all for the average person. It's all going to work. It's not about the 3 hours of the week that they're coming into your gym. It's about the 165 hours of the week that they're not in your gym. And that's what they really need. So number one, figure out why they're really here. Number two, help them reveal why it is so important for them to change and how it's holding them back from becoming the best version of themselves. And once they really conceptualize that, well, yeah, because we have that armor up. Oh, I'd like to lose a little bit of weight, but I just want to be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let them get away with that bullshit answer. You've got to strip away that armor and have a real conversation. You got to bring out that inner Tony Robbins. And once you do, and it's important, and then you can show them how literally just trying to work out and follow a diet has not worked for them the past 12 attempts. Here's what you need, right? And you sell a mentorship where you're taking them by the hand and teaching them how to build this into their lives until they can do it on their own. And when you do that and you make that connection to what that weight represents and how it affects them every single day of their lives, they are willing to pay $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 to solve that problem. And they will do that with a short-term program. So I don't care if your model is group or semi or overlapping PT or one-on-one. You can do tremendously well with any of them if you're selling what people actually want and they actually need.
So I've got two follow-ups to that. First one is, what is overlapping PT? Explain that a little bit, because I don't think that's a term that is very common in the industry yet.
It isn't, because I created it. So you're probably like, what is that? It's something that I created. So I ran, as you guys know, I ran with semi and one-on-one PT for the longest time. Okay. Yeah. So the pros of PT, hey, I can bring in, you can sell sessions for, we sell them for more now, but you can sell sessions for, or overlapping, but most people market price is like $60 to $90 an hour.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Something like that. And so you can bring in, when you sell a pack, this is what people do. They're not selling solutions. They're just selling a pack, right? Of 8 or 12 or 20 or 10 or whatever. So you've got that, but you can bring in a lot of revenue pretty quickly that way. Mm-hmm. But you have to pay out, you're either doing it yourself, and you're taking on a lot of extra work. Sign up a 3-time-a-week client that might bring in $840 a month, but guess what? That's 3 hours. How many of those can you do?
Right.
Right. And if it's a trainer, generally you have to pay out a good amount of that too. So it does cut into margins. But the problem with one-on-one is that everybody wants the prime time in the mornings or the prime time in the evenings.
Right.
Your capacity is 1. So there's only so many 5 p.m.s and 6 p.m.s, and that's 1. So if you've got one trainer with one person, it takes up more space when you have a trainer for everybody. But what happens is that you're going to have a staffing problem because you need to hire more to handle the 4 people or 3 or 4 people who want 5 p.m.s and 6 p.m.s.
Right.
So you hire, but the problem is there's not enough work for them in the other hours of the day. Right. And so now typically you're getting somebody who's not bought in to you and your culture, where you're underemploying them. And they'll do it for a while until they're like, I got to find more work somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And when they leave with that one-on-one relationship, those clients are gone. 80% of them gone. And it's really hard. So you can do pretty well, but you'll have setbacks. And hiring, as we know, that's not easy for any of us right now.
Right.
So when you need, that many trainers, it's really tough. There's just not enough work for all of them. And you're always going to run into that problem. Okay. Then you take semi-private. So I had semi-private, but the con of that is that, first of all, I was selling those for $30 initially per, then it was $40. Okay. And that's what most people are kind of do, maybe 50. And that's decent. Okay. But you need way more people for that, right? You need to send up way more people. And here's the awkward thing is you might be going through this and they really want semi-private, but they need to come in here at 2 p.m. And then you're like, well, I don't have anybody at 2 p.m. So you're hesitant then you're like, well, you're going to have to do private because we don't have, and you're hesitant to start up new times. Once you start up that new time, you're obligated to be there or a staff member those 2 or 3 times a week. And there might be 0 or 1 person showing up for the next 6 months. So you're either just letting it all, you're doing that yourself and eating the time, or what you're doing is paying somebody, basically probably all of the revenue, right? And that can be hard. So you're reluctant to, it's not an easy thing. You might have to get them with a different product at that point. And that's just not an easy conversation. Sometimes it costs sales. And the thing is with semi, they don't value these services as much, right? Because with a semi, it's still like, I don't feel like going today. I'll just go tomorrow kind of thing. There's a lot of value. You'd be surprised how many people want to do PT just because they have an appointment. They say that. They have an appointment that I got to show up for. I wouldn't do it otherwise. So, and the thing is people who want PT, they also value their time. If I'm, a productive professional who makes good money and I want to get in shape and do PT and I want to come home on my way from work and work out at 5 p.m., but you don't have anything available until 7:30 or 8 p.m., how long am I going to continue to do that? Because people can afford to do that. They value their time. So it's got to be convenient for them. And if it's not, they're going to fall off at some point, no matter what you do. So there's this juggling. So each one, there's pros and cons of each, but overlapping PT is designed to have the pros of both of them without any of the cons. So the differences are subtle, very subtle, but it's a lot of it in the ways you sell it in. So overlapping PT is essentially treat them like personal training sessions. Okay. And the best practice is to schedule recurring time slots.
Right.
Okay. So I sign up somebody who's going to do 3 times a week. Cool. We're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 p.m. Cool. We'll put them in recurring slots. And the thing is like, hey, yeah. Oh, I'm leaving out of town. Can I come in Thursday at 5 instead? No problem. Boop, move it. Right. So you've got the recurring PT. And here's the thing. When new people sign up, you don't have to hold all these hours open. Like if nobody's there, you don't have to be there. That's the great thing. Nobody has to be there. You don't hold them open. You just got to treat them all like PT individual appointments. And when they happen to overlap, let's say you sign up another person, she wants 5 p.m. or maybe even 5:30s. It doesn't even matter. When they happen to overlap, guess what? You let them overlap. So we kind of cap it at 4. We don't regularly schedule anybody more than 4. Occasionally we might do a 5. Just
so
as
in
an
like
anomaly.
in like an hour, you want, like, let's say it's the 5 p.m. hour, you would have no more than maybe 4 PT clients in that hour with the coach.
Yep, exactly. Because past that, you start to deteriorate the service, right?
Right.
And so the cool thing is you can talk about it as personal training, right? And where you're going to get the exact workouts that you need and be pushed exactly how you need to be pushed and that you're capable of.
Yeah.
And so that you can come in here at 5 p.m.s when it works for you and your schedule. We utilize this overlapping format. So while everything's going to be geared to exactly what you need and personalized for you, we may be simultaneously working with 1, 2, or 3 other people, giving them direction, right? The only con of this is that we're not going to stand over you and count your reps. Right. We're not going to hover over you. And before I can say it, they'll say it. They'll be like, oh, I don't need that.
Right.
And it's just, and here's the cool thing. So you can sell it and we sell these things for more with our transformational programs that we sell by selling solutions instead of sessions. We're selling overlapping PT for more than we used to sell one-on-one PT. Let that sink in there, right? That is huge. That is huge. And now we don't have to worry about opening up new hours or closing them down. The bottom line is we get to just have the best blend of our availability and their availability. And everybody wins. Everybody wins. And the cool thing is, I was hesitant. I was fearful. I'm like, because everybody thinks about if they got PT right now, they're like, oh, I could never do that. Like Susan would never, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's the relationship and blah, blah. And your staff will might push back on it a lot, right? Well, they pay for that one-on-one. Here's the thing. There are ways to integrate your old staff into this where it's way better. You can give them more value to this for the same price. I did it. I've got 6 gyms and the 6th one started that way. All 5 of them, we converted to this. If you have some big problems, you can still grandfather those 1 or 2 people. But literally we helped Dan Clayton in Ohio convert his entire gym into it in the course of 4 weeks. He lost 0 people. And he doubled his existing prices for everybody new coming on board. We're slowly ramping up his other ones. And not only that, but his capacity just 4x'd. It 4x'd. Right. And when you also put in the price increase that we've doubled it, it's 8x'd. His potential is 8x'ing with no more hours of work. None. And that's the coolest thing about this. So the reason why it wins is obviously the gym owner wins. Okay. The employee wins. So the cool thing about this, I actually pay out less than I would a one-on-one session. But all my trainers now or coaches, they're all making more money than they used to. Okay. They're making more money than they used to, but working the same or fewer hours even. And I'm making more margins. So I'm winning. The employee's winning. The employee really wins. Why? Because I need to hire fewer employees that get way more highly paid. That is a win. I can pay my trainer 6 figures on this. It's awesome. I got a trainer who's like 23, coming up on like 6 figures. It's awesome. And all he's doing is training. So yeah, like the employee wins as well. And then who also wins is the client. Because one-on-one versus overlapping, I can tell you from experience, 6 times over is a better experience. The client likes it more. They get to come to the times that are convenient for them, not just what you might have available with that 1 or 2 trainers. And if you lose that trainer, well, shoot, we got to have you come in another time, right? Or you got to hop in and take it as the owner. Not good. So the client wins because they get times that are convenient for them. They're more likely to stick around for it. And it is a better experience. What I hear from a lot of box gym owners is like, we like that community aspect and this and that. You get that. One-on-one can get very rent-a-friend situation where it's less work gets done and it's more about catching up over what happened over the weekend and stuff like that. They know when they come in, they know the other guy, the other person or 2 or 3 people, and develop camaraderie. More work gets done. It's a higher energy level and there's more of a community feel. And it is less about that relationship with the one-on-one trainer, which makes it also safer in case you lose them. But the fact of the matter is, it is extremely rare that I lose anyone. Since I switched to this 2.5 years ago, I think I've lost 1 person on my locations. And that was also because Danny was getting married, or maybe not getting married, is heading that way. He moved to where his girlfriend is and got her job in Texas. It just, this format wins. And space-wise, because my places are smaller too. And even if you have a large group gym that's got space, but your PT or semi area, maybe it's smaller. There's a big difference with 4 people working, 4 trainers or coaches working with 4 one-on-one clients. The space that takes up versus 1 working with 4. It's a big difference because one of my locations is 1,300 square feet. But I can crank out of that thing with this model.
So at what point did you make the switch to this model or have the kind of realization that, hey, this is where I need to go? Was that after the second location? Was it 3 or 4? Where was that at?
God, I wish. It was only until 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
It's when we started opening back up for COVID.
Okay.
And there were 2 things that just launched my gyms into the next stratosphere. And it's the reason that we're on this podcast. And now I'm working with gyms all over the world. And you don't have to do overlapping. If you are just group right now, by finding out like how to create a transformational offer inside of your gym for people who need more than workouts, you can crush it with. If you have PT, you can just keep one-on-one PT. I would suggest overlapping. But if you're a semi-private model, it works for semi-private. So there's 2 main things. Is 1, increase value to drastically increase price for people who need more than workouts. Okay, drastically increase price. Selling a transformational offer, for example, this could be a 9-week program that comes with 3 times a week, whether it's group or semi or one-on-one, doesn't matter. And you can sell that for anywhere from like $2,000 to $6,000 for a 9-week program coming in 3 times a week. And then you convert them to a year at week 6. There's a whole process. So number 1 is learning how to drastically increase your prices, okay, by adding value with a transformational program. Okay. And then number 2, that really helped it solve all my staffing problems and got better margins and so on and so forth. That has been overlapping PT. So I just finished up because we're recording this. I think it's, it'll come out in a few weeks, but I kind of finished up with my P&Ls and I looked at like my 7th Street location. Right. And I recently published this too inside of our group, but it's, I did the P&L on it and it made like almost $250K profit. Okay. 2,500 square feet. And the revenue was not even crazy high. I think it was low 40s, maybe mid 40s. I can't quite remember, something like that. But my profit margins are super high, super high on it. And like my net margin was dang near 50%. So it's really, the volume is so hard. Acquisition is a pain. It's expensive. It's always changing. Facebook ads are not getting easier. There's a lot of work involved now to nurture those leads. And the high volume model, it's really tough. You need more staff. You have more problems. You have more complaints. The people who pay the least are always the biggest a-holes, and really what I found is working with fewer clients that pay you way more money, and really just essentially working with the people who really value your services. Like your dream clients, you only need a few of them to crush it. I don't know what the total number of people members I have over there, but it's not that high. It's for sure less than 100, like way less than 100. Somewhere between probably like 60 and 90. If I had to give a obviously with 6 gyms, I don't really work in them a whole lot. So I couldn't tell you the up-to-date numbers on it. I just see the financials.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So you're at 6 gyms now. Where we left off before was 2 gyms. There were a lot of struggles with those 2 gyms. Why go to 3 and then 4?
Because my eyes were bigger than my stomach at that point. It's I just didn't know enough at that stage. I think I got the first one at 29 then.
Okay.
Because I had 4 years in the corporate world. Then I had 4.5 in lifetime. So yeah, I was 29 when I started the first one. I was then 30 when I got the second. And so what happened was the guy I bought the gym from, if you remember, he had 2 locations. So his wife was in real estate. He wanted to go there. So he asked if I wanted to buy the first location, because no shocker, running gyms is hard work, right? For most people, low profits. So I was able to arrange seller financing. And I had a client. This is the first time I've ever taken outside money. Okay. And he offered to put up the cash portion of it on the down. And I took the entirety of the loan on seller financing. So I was able to kind of acquire one really for free, obviously taking on a lot of liability with the lease and everything. But I was able to do that. So was it kind of foolish? Yeah, probably. And then so that happened. And right at the same time as I was negotiating that deal and still hadn't even closed, my landlord at the second location, they're awesome landlords, but they own a lot. It was Bob Parsons. He owns that company. He was the founder of GoDaddy, and he sold out. He's a billionaire, right? So they own this other property in Scottsdale, and they had a yoga studio go out of business. That type of format, it's just like, hey, bathrooms and open kind of thing, right? So they're like, okay, well, you've been paying your bills every month for a while. How about you take over this location, and do it? I'm like, listen, I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have anybody to run it. Okay. So I said, no, I'm like, I just can't, because I hadn't even taken over the other one. Right. And they came back with a better offer. I'm like, I just don't think I can do this. And then they came back with another offer. Okay. And it was many, many months free. They were going to demise the separating wall. They had some stupid separating wall between like retail and, wherever you do the yoga. And then, so I found somebody I used to work with at the Scottsdale Lifetime, and we arranged a deal. He didn't have much money either, but somehow we kind of pulled together some resources. I think we used trade money to get these dumbbells too. I was so broke for so long, Trevor. I can't even tell you. The fact that I strung these places together, miracle, absolute miracle. And so by, I think it was year 3 in business, I had 4 locations, something like that. Went way over my head, like ridiculously over my head.
And so, I mean, was it all the same model? Were you just kind of like repeating, just kind of rinse and repeat?
So it was private and semi. Private and semi at that time, right? Is how it was. We still had large group. Large group phased out at a couple locations, but at my Desert Ridge and the Scottsdale location, we never brought in large group. We just ran with PT and semi-private. But that didn't even work out with that owner too, just because he just didn't have what it take. And that was I've made every mistake ever. Okay. So also he was renting space from another place. He had his own clientele. We let him keep that separate and train his people in there. And he was going to be the owner operator, but really all his focus was on his own clients. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the place was like breaking even, maybe some it started to lose then. And he just wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy. So that was challenging too, because I had to do something about that. Because I had a massive seller financing that was paid back. The seller financing was paid back with 15% of the gross every month, which is a good chunk. Mm-hmm. So I was growing too fast, and I didn't really have, because of all this stuff going on, and I really wasn't, it was still pretty touch and go, pretty precarious.
So even based on this, you decided to go even more. Then you went number 5 and number 6, right? Yeah. And so was there a little bit of a gap in there where you were able to kind of like stabilize this kind of asset class to an extent and then move to the next one?
Yeah. So I had the 4 and I had to replace him as an owner. So I kind of bought it and sold it to 2 people who were renting space from my others. And we don't have renters anymore really, but at the time I did. So they wanted their own studio. Boom. So that worked out really well. And they crushed it. They just do their own thing. They adopted a lot of the stuff that I did, but they just crush it. So that place started doing well. Dave Bess, who was a renter when I took over the second location, he became my GM then when I lost my GM, and he started crushing that location on his own. He's just so talented, right? And then I was at Desert Ridge and I had my original location run by the guy. So things were going pretty good. Like, okay, all right, now I'm making, I don't know what I was doing then, but I'm probably making like 150, 200 or something like that net and stuff like that. And I'm paying off the loans and stuff like that, all that kind of stuff. And I try to pay off those as fast as I could. So I was doing okay, maybe a little bit above 200 at that point. I don't know. And then that employee, my number 1, he did the whole thing where he slept with the female trainer, lied about it, covered up, you name it. The place melted down. And instead of letting him go, I installed him at Desert Ridge, went over to save that location, and he immediately blew that one to hell. And then, here's where I got really lucky. The guy who told me about it at the original location, Ron, he was a renter because I had renters at this time, right? He's extremely hardworking. He's loyal. He wanted an opportunity. He stepped in to run that place because I was running it for a few months. Then I had to go back over there because I had to fire him with no employees there, right? Mm-hmm. Or one very part-timer. So Ron was going to take over the helm at the 7th Street location. I was kind of working in both, 1 billion hours a week. Then he started taking over that and he crushed it. Also, my partners at Scottsdale and my manager, Dave Bess, started crushing it at the Arrowhead and Scottsdale locations. If those didn't outperform so much, it would have been really, really bad. Really, really bad. So I got really lucky by having some amazing people. Mm-hmm. They got me through it. Ron Edwards, thank you. Dave Best, thank you. Matt Hoodie and Becky Hoodie, thank you so much. I would have been done. You guys are amazing. And so that's what happened there. And then Dave. So what happened too was Ron eventually bought in as a minority owner at a location. Dave eventually bought in as a minority. They became partners because they were just crushing it for years. And then it was recently. So I wasn't looking to get another location, but an opportunity came up where it just came across my desk. And it's like, man, if I can find somebody to run this, the equipment's already there. Usually it's from places that go out of business.
Right.
It's a hard game. So, every now and again, I'll get deals come across my desk from brokers or real estate brokers, whether they're business brokers or real estate brokers. And I'm like, well, I'll make a few phone calls because at this point it's going really well. And so that kind of was another location that started in Scottsdale. And then it was COVID. COVID hit. Okay. COVID hit. And then obviously we all know what happened. That was a lot of fear just because I've got at this point 5 locations. Okay. 5 locations and now they're all shut down. And that was a little bit stressful. And to make matters worse, a few months before, I think it was December or January, technically January, I had bought the building across my first location. The landlords were horrible. I can't even tell you how horrible. That's another story. But there's a convenience store across the street that was closing down. So I bought that building. So I threw out a wad of cash on the down payment in reno, right? So I threw out many tens of thousands of dollars on that one. I don't know how much it was anymore. 80. I don't know. I don't really know. And then I also bought a vacation house in Flagstaff, which is a 2-hour drive. The place is amazing. It was operating as an Airbnb that it was doing okay. I'm like, worst case scenario, I'll break even or maybe pay a little bit, but we use it as our vacation house too. So I bought that, or rather, stuff started happening in March. That's when it was. We didn't really know yet, but as soon as the NBA shut down, it's like, oh man, things are getting wild. Even my mortgage broker is on the phone. He's like, do you want to do this? I might not be able to get my earnest deposit back of like 10,000 or something, but he's like, do you want to do this?
Hey, Trevor here. And I apologize for interrupting. I know it was just starting to get really, really good. This episode with Scott Carpenter got a little long, so we wanted to split it into 2. And no better way than to leave you with a little bit of a cliffhanger. So you'll have to check out part 2 with Scott Carpenter on the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.